The last notes for the year. This is not going to be too much of a long one, but here, let's get started. Let's factor out this equation right here. F of x equals x squared plus 4x plus 4. Now, we should already know how to factor this out by now, but if you do it all the way, you're going to get x plus 2 times x plus 2. Now, when I look at this, I see two sets of parentheses, and I would actually work this out twice, which is a waste of half my effort. We're trying to work smart, not hard. You feel me? So instead of writing it like this, we can simplify this and write equals x plus 2 squared. This looks a lot simpler, and that's why this is the simplest form right here. So when you have two of the exact same thing in the parentheses, you can simplify it to just x plus 2 quantity squared. So for example, if you had something that was x minus 3 times x minus 3, you could simplify this and just write it as x minus 3 quantity squared. That's how you say the little 2 on the outside of the parentheses. So for example, if you had x squared plus 8x plus 16, this would factor out into x plus 4 times x plus 4. And you could simplify this even further and just write x plus 4 quantity squared, and that is your answer. So this is the first part of our notes. The second part now, we're going to be doing the difference of sums. Difference of squares. Difference of squares. Now let's work out a couple of problems. Let's do, first of all, f of x equals x squared minus 4. Now if we work this out normally, remember, first thing we want to look for is a negative. No, it's not. Are there any common factors? No, they're not. So let's just go with the ABC. A equals 1. What about B, though? B's not there. What the heck? If B's not there, then it's going to be 0. Remember, B has to be in front of X. But we don't see that there, so B is 0. And C is going to be negative 4. If we draw the X box now, in the top blank, it's A times C. That's negative 4. In the bottom blank, it's B, which is 0. The only thing, if it adds up to 0, it has to be the exact same number, but one's positive and one's negative. So this one's going to be positive 2 and negative 2. Then from here, we could write our factored form out, x plus 2 times x minus 2. That's our answer right there. Now let's try one more. F of x equals 4x squared minus 9. So in this case, are there any greatest common factors? No, they're not. Is a negative? No, it's not. So we're good to proceed. A equals 4. B equals, once again, 0. There's no x term here. And C equals negative 9. So let's set up the x box. In the top space, remember, it is A times C. That's negative 36. And in the bottom is 0. So remember, it has to be the exact same number, but one's positive and one's negative. So in this case, it's going to be positive 6 and negative 6. But wait, a isn't 1 here, so we need to put a over our side values, ax. So 4x. Then we'll simplify these fractions, equals 2x over 3. And the side equals 2x over negative 3. That tells me what goes in the parentheses. So my factored form here is 2x plus 3 times 2x minus 3. All right, so looking at these two examples we just did, watch this. We had x squared minus 4. The answer was x plus 2 times x minus 2. Then our second example, we had 4x squared minus 9. You can see our answer was 2x plus 3 times 2x minus 3. What do you notice about the answers here, the factored form? The factored form, we can see that the numbers are the exact same, but the only difference is the sign. We have a positive and a negative. Over here it's the same thing, positive and negative. Now what do we notice about the two starting equations, x squared minus 4 and 4x squared minus 9? One thing you might notice is that b is 0. There's no x term here. And another thing you might notice is that there's a minus sign right here. But there's one more very important key about all the terms, x squared, 4, 4x squared, 9. What about them? What if I told you that the answer to 25x x squared minus 9 is 5x plus 3 times 5x minus 3. And I can find that answer just without even using the x box. What if I told you this? 100x squared minus 49, if I factor it out, it's 10x squared, 10x plus 7 times 10x minus 7. Do you notice anything here? Some people might notice here, but all of the terms here are perfect squares. You see right here, we have an invisible 1. 1 is a perfect square. 4 is a perfect square. 4 right here is a perfect square. 9 is a perfect square. 25, 9, 100, 49. And then our terms inside our parentheses, look at this. Watch this. X times x is x squared. 2 times 2 is 4. Over here, 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. Over here, 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 3 is 9. And on this last one, 10 times 10 is 100. And 7 times 7 is 49. So I'm going to show you what this actually is, but pretty much if we have an equation that's the form of ax squared minus c, then if a and c are perfect squares, then our factored form ax squared minus c equals the square root of a plus square root of c times square root of a minus the square root of c. And so using this information, could you immediately tell me, without using the x box, what the factored form of 64x squared minus 9 is? 64, the square root of 64 is 8, so we're going to put 8x. Square root of 9 is 3, so plus 3 times 8x minus 3. So this could save you a lot of time. Otherwise, you would have to do the x box, and at the top you would have 64 times 9, negative 9. That's kind of a hassle. Now, last thing to notice though is, remember, when you start your problem, you always want to check to make sure that there's no greatest common factors as well as negative signs. So for example, if I give you 8x squared minus 200, you might want to use the difference of squares shortcut, but you can't because 8 isn't a perfect square. 200 isn't a perfect square. But wait, what if I factor out an 8? Then I'm left with x squared minus 25, and x squared and 25 are perfect squares. Now I can see that this is going to be 8 times x plus 5 times x minus 5, and that would be your fully factored form. Don't forget the 8 on the outside. And then in another example, what if I gave you this? Negative 4x squared plus 25. Well, there's a problem with the way this is set up. Our difference of squares shortcut has to be a negative in between the two terms. And also, you might notice that a is negative right here. We don't want a negative, so what can I do here? I can factor out a negative 1. That changes all my signs. So inside the parentheses, I have 4x squared minus 25, and now I can see there's a difference of squares here. So negative 1 times 2x plus 5 times 2x minus 5. And that is my fully factored form. And that is it, guys. The last notes. We are done. Oh my goodness. Peace.